Welcome to the second webcast in the How to Get Published series for authors. The purpose of this presentation is to provide advice about the use of proper scientific language in a manuscript. It's important to take seriously the presentation of your manuscript, especially the language you use to communicate your results. Without clear and proper language, editors and reviewers will not grasp the full message or impact of your work. Even though the findings you report might be cutting edge, poor language quality, like errors in grammar, spelling, or language usage, could delay publication or could lead to outright rejection of the paper, preventing the research from getting the recognition it deserves. Proper English should be used throughout the entire manuscript, and don't forget the captions and headings and figures, charts, graphs, or photos. Oftentimes, authors assume that the publisher will correct the language of their manuscript after it has been accepted, but this is not correct. It's actually the author's responsibility to make sure paper is in the best form possible. Though publishers don't correct language, they do often provide resources for authors who are less familiar with the conventions of international journals. Please check your publisher's author's website for more information. Some publishers may even perform technical screening prior to peer review, and if the quality of the language of your paper doesn't meet a journal's minimum standards, it could be returned to you for improvement. The key to presenting your work well is to write clearly, objectively, accurately, and concisely. Foreign language students should practice writing in English at any moment that they can, and even keep records in English during their research to practice their language skills. It's obvious that you should try to prevent spelling errors using a spell checker in English, but the other most common language errors include sentence construction, incorrect tenses, inaccurate grammar, or the mixing of languages throughout the manuscript. I'll go into detail about each of these cases in the following slides. You should always read the Journal's Guide for Authors to check for any additional language specifications. To write a successful manuscript, first be aware of the sentence structure that you use. Sentences should be constructed in short, factual bursts. Long and complicated sentences tend to confuse readers. Only one idea should be conveyed in each sentence. And in fact, the average length of sentences in scientific writing is only about 12 to 17 words. You must also take care to use the proper tenses when describing your work and findings. The present tense should be used for known facts and hypotheses. For example, the average lifespan of a honeybee is 6 weeks. But the past tense should be used for describing experiments that have been conducted and the results of these experiments. For example, the average lifespan of bees in our contained environment was 8 weeks. Being consistent and correct in your use of tenses makes your paper easier to understand for the reader. Pay special attention to the grammar used in your manuscript. One way to help make the work and results clearer for the reader is by using the active rather than the passive voice. The passive voice can be used in the methods section of a paper, but otherwise the active voice will usually shorten sentences and make them sound more dynamic and interesting for the reader. You're encouraged to use the active phrase, "we found that," freely, which is a quick signal to the reader that you're describing one of your results. This is also much more concise and to the point than writing in the passive voice. For example, "it has been found that there had been," etc. You should avoid contractions such as "it's," "isn't," or "weren't," which aren't often used in professional writing, and avoid abbreviations except for very well-known ones unless you've already clearly defined them within the paper. You should also minimize the use of prosaic adverbs such as "however" or "furthermore," and eliminate redundant phrases that are already obvious, for example, stating "in this report" numerous times. Double-check all unfamiliar words. Never rely on electronic dictionaries or translation software, as they can often produce erroneous and sometimes even ridiculous results. Understand the meaning and usage of every word in your manuscript. The purpose of publishing a manuscript is to communicate your message to the research community and to advance knowledge in the field. If your manuscript is poorly written or presented in a way that makes its message unclear, then there's a risk that reviewers, editors, and readers may not understand it. To ensure that your work is comprehensible, It's essential that you use proper English language with concise sentences, correct tenses, and correct grammar. Consult the Journal's Guide for Authors for any additional specifications. We also recommend that you ask a native English-speaking colleague to help you edit the final version before submission, or take advantage of one of the many language editing services available today. Thanks for tuning into this webcast about using proper scientific language. For more information or to watch other webcasts in the How to Get Published series, please visit our website.